Hello everyone. Today we are going to be talking about introduction to low level design and OOP. Low level design, which is also sometimes called as object oriented design, is nothing but study of writing good structure code which is extensible, maintainable and testable. What we mean by these three terms? So extensible means the code which is easy to be added new features in. As we grow the software, there are several revisions and versions to it, right? So it is very essential to write the code very which it is very easy to add the new features. Maintainable means the code which is easy to be read and understood so that it is um, robust and adaptable over the time. Testable means that the code that we write has several units to it. For example, the major units are functions and classes, right? The units in themselves should also be testable, which is called as unit testing sometimes, and also the overall software should also be testable very well. So this is what constitutes as the good code. So how what do we study mainly in low level design? It is object oriented programming, solid principles and design patterns, and we are going to see each of them in future. So but today we will start with the object oriented programming. Um, so object oriented programming, so what is it? It is nothing but a programming paradigm. Programming paradigm is a style of programming. We write the program in certain specific way. So before going into object oriented programming, let's first revisit something called as procedural programming. This was the standard before object oriented programming took over in the industry of the software engineering. It is also called as verb oriented programming sometimes. In procedural programming, we write program in terms of procedures or function. Procedures are nothing but the unit of code which contains certain set of instruction which is going to be called over and over again. And we have one main procedure that is usually called main in C style programming languages, and it calls all the other different procedures of functions and they perform the action. So this was big taken over by object oriented programming, in which we do not talk in terms of procedure or function, rather we talk in terms of concepts and object. So what does that actually mean? So in that means that we model the problem in terms of real world objects. If we think about it, real world objects have two components in them, that is state and behavior. State means the data associated with them, like they might have skin color. Let's say about some animals, they might have eyes, might have different kind of skin, their height and all. And behavior is like what are the things that they can do, what are the actions that they can perform. For example, a fish can swim but it cannot walk. So these are the behaviors associated with them. When we model the problem, the program in such a way, in this way, this is called as object oriented programming, in which the basic unit is entity and it has state and behavior, and this state is entity is only called as object. Mm. So in this, what happens is that entities interact with each other with their state and behavior, and they exchange information within them, and that's how we model the program. uh, but object oriented programming is not only about this. It stands upon the four pillars, four main concepts called as abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance and polymorphism. Today we are going to be talking about abstraction and encapsulation. So let's talk about that. So abstraction is the most basic concept in object oriented programming. It means in when we model or solve the problem, or even talk in general in terms of concepts rather than going into the implementation detail. In real world example, let's say that we are driving a car, right? In that we don't need to bother about how the engine was made, how the pedals are working internally, how the steering wheel was made. All we get the car and the instructions how to run it, and those instructions are something called as interface. So whenever the whenever a user is interacting with our code, they only need to know how that that program is supposed to work, that is the interface, without going to the implementation detail. That is everything the abstraction is about. So it is very important because it helps us to think about and reason about the problems rather than going to the details how other part of the program or other entities are working. So this is the fundamental principle in which object oriented programming is based. Now let's talk about the second principle, encapsulation. But before going to this, uh, let's see like what led to the encapsulation and object oriented programming in general. So let's revisit the procedural programming style or procedure oriented programming. So as we talked about it, in procedure oriented programming there used to be procedures, the unit of code, right? And uh, and then we used to solve the program. So it is also called verb oriented because we are talking in terms of do this, perform this set of instruction, then perform this set of instruction. We are not talking in terms of object here. So what was the problem with it and why it was deprecated in the favor of object oriented programming in the industry? The problem was that when we are doing things in terms of functions, the functions are going to need some input. Usually the structure of function is that they need some input, and there will be a function and they will perform some operation in this input and they are going to spit some output, right? So they always need some input. So there need to be some data also. So those data were situated in terms of variables in the global space. Like global space means that every functions have the access to this data. So what happened is that it led to something called as spaghetti code. That means that all the functions have full authority to work on the code and they can do whatever with it like. And as there might be several developers working on it, they might not be aware like which function is already working on the given data, and they might alter it. That leads to a uh, very undebuggable code which is very hard to read and very hard to understand and reason about. So that's why the object oriented programming became so popular, because this thing is solved by something called as encapsulation. So in encapsulation, the idea is that rather than having the functions floating around and every functions having all the access that they need, we encapsulate the data and the functions, or they are, as they are called, method in object oriented programming, in one unit called as object. And only this object can decide what will happen this data and how this data is going to be modified using method, whether this data can be um, um, referenced and used by other objects or not. Everything is in control of this object. So this leads to a very um, good style of coding in which uh, we can enforce how our data is going to be used and how it is going to be modified. So how does it do that? How the data are given the access to, or given an access to different objects, and how they are getting modified? This is being decided by something called as access modifiers. So in object oriented programming, every object has something called as object as access modifier. So here we are going to be talking about specifically the programming language Java. And it is very good to read to study object oriented programming first time with Java, because Java is one of the hardcore object oriented programming languages. It implements all the principles of the object oriented programming, and as it is the type language, it also is suitable for all the design patterns that are there, that were first established by the pioneers of design pattern system, called as they are called as gang of four. Four pioneer software engineers who introduced this term called as design pattern. So it is very good if we start learning the object oriented programming with Java. So Java is only one implementation of OOP, but let's talk about access modifiers in terms of Java. So Java has four access modifiers mainly. They are public, um, protected, private, and fourth one is default. So these access modifiers help us to allow where the data, and which are also called as the data members of an object. So let's create a chart in which we can see um, where the data can be accessed. So access modifier. So in the same class, in same package, in same package and child classes, everywhere. So if we talk about the public access modifier, it is available in every place. The protected modifier allows us to use the um, members in the same class, in same package in child class, but it cannot be accessed everywhere. It can be used in the same package in same class. If we talk about default, it is available in the same class and in the same package, but it is not available in the different packages. Even if we call it about the in the child class, and for private it is only available in the same class and nowhere else. So what does this mean? We can see that with the example, but before that, if someone is very new to the programming, object oriented programming, and they have never coded in Java, let's talk about few terms before that. We use few terms here: class, package, child class. Yeah. So class is nothing but the blueprint for the object. So what do we mean by that? Object are the we can say that object are the entities in the programming, right? We can say that yeah, they are the entity in the programming, but class is something called as the, they can be called as what int data type is to integer values. Same thing, we can say that class is to the objects. So objects are the real thing, the instances, the things that are going to occupy the space in memory, and classes are the blueprint which define, they are the define what is that going to be the type of that instance. So that these are the classes, and classes how they are defined in Java, we should be already knowing that. Package is nothing but can be considered as the folder level, like we can divide the programming units into the folders, and each folder can be called as package. And child class is something which we will be discussing later also, but it is the part of inheritance. In inheritance, so basically for this purpose we can think that child class of the given class can has basically all the properties and all the methods of the given class. So let's say there is some a class called as A, and then there is a B which is the child um, um, of A. In this case, whatever the variables and methods A has, B also will get those by default, and it can have its more also. So this is what usually um, child class means, and we are going to discuss this more when we talk about inheritance. So let's see one code example to understand these examples. So here I have one basic example code in which I have two folders. So these are what I was saying, that these are the packages. We can divide the source code into different packages, and we can place the related code units in them. In this main class we have two classes called as main, which is going to be the entry point for the whole program, and then there is a user class which has some attributes and methods to it. Then there in another package there is a student class which basically extends user. That means that it inherits from the user. So student is the child of user here. So let's see the example here. In the main class, we created an object of the user class, and that and user had the attributes here as name, which as we have not given any access modifier here. This is the default access modifier that we were talking about. Similarly, int is the int year of birth has the access modifier of protected, and let's give this name as the public access modifier for now, and the phone number is private, and both of these methods are public. That is whatever is the public, whatever the member is public here are accessible to all the classes in the whole code. The protected is only available, as I said, is available in the same package, and if the class is the child of the given class. So for example, user is a class here and student is the child of the user class. So the student class here will have access to the protected members year of birth in this, and private is the variable which is only accessible inside the class. So why do we have the private members actually? The private members are there to only be accessible and modifiable inside the class. If any external object wants to have access to it, they will have to call something called as getters or setter methods, which I have set here. So we are going to be seeing that. So in the main class, we can see that we created the object of the user class, and then we tried to set the values of its attributes, right? So here user dot name is John Doe. We are not getting any error, and this will run because the name is the public value, so it works. Now user dot age is equal to 25. It also is not showing any error because age is the public is the default access modifier, and main is the class which is inside the same package, so it has the access to it. User year of birth, the year of birth is the protected member, so it has the it also has the access modifier access as the same as the default one. It is available in the same package, and it is also available in the child class. So as user is in the same package in the main class, it is also available. Now if you see, the phone number is throwing error, and if we hover over it, we can see that phone number is the private access in the main user. So as I said, it is the private member, so it cannot be accessed. So how we are going to use it? So that's what this getter and setter method are for. So first we can set the phone number by using the method user dot set phone number, and we are going to use this string. And let's comment this for now. And now that we have got the phone number has been set, now we can print the uh, print the value, because if we want to print the value directly, let's say system dot out dot print, and we try to print the value user dot phone number. We are going to again get the error because this is the private member again. So for that only we had made this method public, and it is a getter, so we can simply call it. So that is how the private member is accessed usually. Now if we comment this out for a while, for now, then we can run this code and we can see the result. So let's run this. Okay. just comment it out for now so that we don't get any error. Yeah, so if we see we got the phone number. So this is how we get and set the private variables. So we saw the example of private, protected and default, but not so much about protected, because protected is all about the child classes and whether it is located in the same package. If it is in the same package, there is no worries, but if it is located in other package and we want to access it, we can access it via child classes only. So the student class here is in the other package, but it is the child class. So as I said, that this student class, as is it is the child of the user, it will have all the variables that the user already have, all the members, including get phone number, set phone number and all these attributes. So here if we see, we are getting the error, the age is the public in the main user and we are trying to use it, right? So it is not accessible here because it is in other um, package. In the main Java, if we now remove this, so we can see that the same problem is here also. The age is something which is uh, default, and we are trying to access it. So what we can do, we can make this one also protected. So if we make this protected, right, then protected in age, if we make this the protected variable, then we can see that now age is accessible here as well as here also. Now we don't have any problem, but we still see that we have problem with set age. So why is that? If we hover over it, we will see that set age is not public in the student class. So here we should have made it public, because this is by default the public access modifier, this default access modifier. This shows that the access modifier is applicable to methods also. So if we want to make it available in the different package, we should make it public. Once we make it public, it will be available there also. So now if we go to the main class, we are not going to get any error, and if we run it, we are going to see all the things. So here we can see that we were able to set the age property, as now this is the protected variable and we have access to it. Once we have set it, we use the set age also. Actually we don't need it now. We have used the set age method here. Once the age was set, now we are going to get the division of the student. The division is subject to that if the age is less than 14, that student belongs to the school or otherwise college. So here we are going to get the division also, and that's it. So I think I hope that this example helps us to understand what the access modifiers are for. So, and this also lets us understand like how encapsulation is important and useful, right? Because now we actually have full control of how we want to give access. We want to give access to the child class of some variable, we can use the protected member. We want to give access to only the package classes, the classes which are in the same package, then we can use default access modifier. If you want to give access to all the members, all the classes whatsoever, then we can use public access modifier. And this is throughout in the whole Java programming. So this is how encapsulation works basically. So I think this was I hope this was interesting and interesting to know. And we are going to talk about inheritance, polymorphism and even composition in the coming videos. Thank you.